Welcome to another weekly featured business brought to you by Visibility Impact and your host, James Moffat, where he will gracefully take our featured guest on a personal and business journey and stories that will inspire, educate, and engage you.
Hello, and welcome to another Friday Featured Business brought to you by Visibility Impact and your host, myself, James Moffat. Today we have our 132nd guest. We're going to learn all about Judith. And actually, you confused me with your surname because you had an email with one name and an invite with the other name, and I thought it was two different people. So Judith, without confusing myself, maybe you can pronounce your name, your surname, and just tell me actually why there was two different surnames there, because just out of curiosity, I'd like to know. So Judith, welcome.
Thank you, James, and thank you for having me. So we'll start with my surname. So one is my maiden name. I was born and I was raised in India, the southern tip of India. So my maiden name is 𝗙𝗘𝗔𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗘𝗗, and I married an Australian with an Irish name, so O'Callaghan. So that's how I get my two names. So here I am.
Excellent. So Judith, welcome. So that actually completely threw me, because I got an email from one name and an introduction from another, and I thought, hey, that's coincidence. I got two Judiths at the same time. But anyway,
there you go.
You're here, and it is one in the same person. So welcome to the show. And we just are going to take you on a journey from your childhood to where you are now. So just going to take you down memory lane and find out, I mean, you alluded to the fact that you come from southern India. So let's find out where you come from, and actually, where are you now? Because it's just out of interest, where are you living now?
I am in Brisbane. So Brisbane, Queensland at the moment. So on the closer to sunny coast and the nice Gold Coast, so sunny side of Australia, so enjoying the mild winter of Queensland. That's where I am, and it's a beautiful place. Love the sunshine here.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Australia a bit more in a minute once we get going, because as a family, we always had intentions to go there, but we never actually made it. So, but anyway, so southern India. So where are you originally from? And tell us a little bit about your childhood, what the things you enjoyed doing. Do you have any siblings? And just a little bit about kind of the activities and things you did growing up.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So I was born in a border town that is in the southern tip of India. There is two states. One is Kerala and the other one is Tamil Nadu. And I was born right in the center. And then I grew up in a town called 𝗙𝗘𝗏𝗏. So it's a small town. It's a trade center, has been an ancient trade center for a long time. So my values or my upbringing had a lot of inputs into what I do and who I have become today. So I grew up with a lot of trading families. The 𝗙𝗘𝗏𝗏 is a trade center. A lot of people were involved in trade in multiple types of trade. So the trade was part of the culture, and it was spoken, living and breathing trade. So I learned a lot about business during that time. So childhood activities, I spent a lot of time with my grandfather and the plantation that he had. Also spent
Right, we've lost you. That's what I'm saying. We can edit this in and we can edit this out. Judith, we lost you.
Where did you lose me? Yep. So where did you lose me?
Hello.
Hello.
No, joking.
I'm back.
No, you said about kind of the trade route and trades and everything. So don't worry. I mean, if we lose you, we can edit this out. So just carry on, and I'll chop that out. So we.
Thank you. Thank you, James. So, yeah, so learning and especially learning trade principles became part of me. I enjoyed the freedom that Tirunelveli brought in. So we had limited electricity when we were growing up. We had a lot of power cuts and all that stuff. So as a result, we became more versatile and reliant or resilient. So we evolved, we adapted, and we grew. So those were the best things of growing up.
And what kind of trades, were they that? It was family trades, or it was just a trade in town, kind of like you lived in?
So, Tirunelveli, by history, it has been a trade center. That is one of the ports of an ancient kingdom operated from there, and people were trading pearls that ages back. And after that, the town became a center for agriculture, grains, because it was a fertile land, so a lot of things got produced. So that was one of it. During my time, the main trades were a lot of mom and pop shops. So every family almost had a business or knew someone who had a business. So the knowledge was plentiful. So people were collaborating. They were helping each other. So, and it was a society that has evolved naturally over time. So as a result, there was lots of principles that were followed and observed, or which are not necessarily written down. A lot of hand-me-down knowledge on how to do things. So that was quite fascinating now when I look back. So I do business transformations for a living, so as you know, and when I look back, some of the principles that I have learned as a child, I wish that was more written down and handed over, so we can prevent a lot of transformation failures and eventually do more good in the world.
No, I hear you. Just touching on that, on business side of things, I learned so much with my 3 children and the way that they learn, and particularly through storytelling and bedtime storytelling, that they actually teach you at the same time, because you're learning from them and their reaction. Now, I've tried to leverage on that and then take that to the business world, wrap it up so it's a bit more professional. And the biggest problem is people don't listen, whereas the kids did. And they're very enthusiastic about it, and they want to learn, and they see the fun and everything if you do it the right way. But in the business world, too busy, can't be bothered. And it just reminds me of, like, there's a cartoon sketch of a guy pulling a cart with square wheels, and then the guy running behind them saying, like, with the round wheels, and saying, like, yeah, I've got some round wheels, and I'm too busy. And
I hear you. Yeah. And that's our life, right? Yeah.
It is. And they're too busy being busy, that they're not looking at common sense. But you're exactly right. A lot of these trades are passed down through the know-how and the wisdom of, like, grandparents and great-grandparents or elders in a group and so on. And yeah, it's funny. I had a lady last week. She was an indigenous person from New Zealand and singer-songwriter, but she was telling us about basically her village where she grew up in, and it was common that you tattoo your arm with the story of the village.
Wow.
But anyway,
that's amazing, isn't it? That's very powerful.
Yeah, you can go listen to that recording. That's on YouTube now. So let's just take you forward a bit. So growing up as a kid then, a lot of these trades and things you learn from parents and others. And you mentioned you have a sibling or siblings.
Yeah, I've got 2 siblings. So one is my biological sibling, who's a younger sister, and I have my parents adopted an older girl who I'm very close with. So I have 2 sisters, older and younger. I'm the lucky one.
Right. Did they travel, or are they in India?
So one of them is at home. My older sister lives closer to closer to where my parents lived, and my younger sister lives in the US. Yeah.
All right. So then, growing up as a kid, then all girls in the family as well. So, what type of things and adventures or hobbies did you have?
So my dad was quite adventurous. So he was a professor and he was also a journalist in his past life. So as a result, he was quite adventurous. So I think I've got my adventure genetics from him. So he traveled a lot. So I accompanied him in a lot of travels. So what it meant was growing up, I also spent a lot of time with tribals. So living with them, learning from them, so learning a lot of trades. So yeah, trades they do or practices they do, and hunting and other things. So I learned the survival side of things. So my dad was very much into it. And with my mom, main things we liked as a family was spending time together, shopping, and she was a chemist, a very scientific person. So the scientific side of brain comes from my mom. So very organized and very scientific. So that's my mom. Yeah. So we did a lot of activities together whenever we could. And my real time, when I remember as a child, is spending time with my grandfather, with whom I learned a lot of aspects that made me who I am. So he was a very interesting person. So he's had a very adventurous life, and he was one of the first people to have a master's in chemistry during his time. So this is like the 1940s when India was having its independence struggle. So he and my grandmother, who I have never met, so they played an active part in the freedom struggle. So, and after that, my grandfather took academics and my grandmother became the inspectress of factories. So they had a very adventurous life. So as a result of it, my grandfather had a lot of stories that he could pass on to me, and a lot of practices that he had learned from his parents that he could pass on to me. So that became a part of me. So when I think about my childhood, those are the best things that happened to me. Yeah.
Excellent. So you traveled, when you said you traveled a lot, was that mainly within India?
My dad traveled a lot within India, and he was traveling internationally as well. So most of my travels were within India. So growing up was during school holidays or weekends or whenever we could fit it in, because school was always a part of a thing. So nobody wanted to break up the routine. So, yeah.
So did that give you the taste of wanting to travel in general?
Yeah. I think that that part of me, the adventurous part of me, came from that experience. So the travel opened my mind in many ways. For example, wherever we went, I learned or I saw the lifestyle of people, what they did, who they have become. So it just opens your world. So as a child, it's like it's your house, and then you have your extended family, and then your neighbors and everything. Plus, when you travel to different places, the mind naturally opens up. So that's when I learned a lot about different languages and cultures and how they communicate. The blessing in India is there is multiple languages, as we know, more than 50 languages. So everywhere we travel, it's like traveling to a different country. So you learn a different language, you learn a different culture. So it's very, very valuable information. Yeah.
Yeah. So with so many different languages in one country, then how did you manage to communicate? I mean, was there a common kind of language, or
English was quite well? Yeah. So most of us just learn. So human brain is very powerful. So yeah, English and Hindi are very common languages, and it connects a lot of people. But when we look at how most of the country, that is commoners, when you look at it, not the elite or anything, just common people survive. Our human brains are very versatile. I observed that people who are good at languages, or people who need to pick up languages really quickly, like even now, I think the last time I was in India, I I saw some migrant workers who had come from the north and they were living for a short period of time in the south, where the languages are very, very different. And this is the group of people who couldn't read or write, but they were speaking the language fluently. So, and they picked up a foreign tongue quite fluently. So this just amazed at the capability of a human brain. Yeah.
I think when you're young, as a kid, you just absorb that. As an adult, it's much more challenging, because my kids, I mean, they speak 4 languages now. I mean, 3 kind of mother tongue languages, because my wife is Brazilian, so they speak Brazilian Portuguese, they speak English with me, and they speak Swiss German. So
there you go.
all 3 at the same time. So then they learn High German, and now they're learning French. That completely baffles me. Right?
Yeah.
How they can have 3 conversations at the same time in 3 different people in 3 different languages.
Yep.
But anyway, I mean, we are capable, more than capable of that. But it helps when you're a child, because you just absorb that. You don't question kind of the grammar or anything. You just learn. Whereas I think when you're older, you start thinking, well, that sentence doesn't look right to me. And, well, because it's not your language, and that's the way it is. So anyway. Yeah. So
we become set in our ways as we grow older, don't we?
Yeah. So then what was the kind of at home? What language did you speak at home?
So we had 2 languages. Main one was Tamil, which my dad's family and extended family spoke. And there was a little hint of Malayalam, because my mom's, rather the town where my mom grew up had a little bit of influence. So I had both of them. So it doesn't make any difference. So you just learn and evolve. And when I lived in Bangalore, which is another town, we ended up picking up a little bit of Kannada as well. So
okay.
I think that happens to most people. So
And when do you start learning English?
English, I think at school. So it was the medium of instruction where I received my education from. Well, education was English. The school was quite good, so it had a good heritage. It's over 100 years old. I think it's over 150 years old now. So it's a very European. It was started by a lady who has never left England, but she had a vision to start a school so she can so doctors or women doctors can come out. So that was the vision, and she somehow saved money and helped someone else start a school. So now it's a very big school. The good thing is the school has still maintained its calling, and the medium of instruction is English. So it's one of the best days.
Yeah, because I mean, I thought kind of English is like the second language for India in a way that,
businesses,
I mean, because there was a lot of the business that came out of India. I mean, for international companies. And I mean, I work for many Indian companies, funny enough. And one in Hyderabad. Yeah. So I remember going to Hyderabad. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
But that's a great story, because I stayed in like an old British military camp that was now like this exclusive club, and they put me there and treated me like royalty. I mean, I felt blessed, right? And
there you go.
And then picked up in a tuk-tuk every morning to go to the office, right?
There you go.
Anyway, that's another story, but a great experience. So let's just look at now. Then, as a kid, then growing up. So, as you had parents like your mum into chemistry and stuff, and what direction did you want to go in? I mean, what were your aspirations and what you wanted to be when you kind of left school?
So, when I left school, I wanted to become a doctor. So the reason was, my older sister went down that path, And also the main thing at that time was I want to help people. So I thought medical profession, you see doctors always helping people. And soon I realized that's not for me. So the next choice, without thinking, I ended up in an engineering school. How did I do it? No idea, but the logical part of my brain kicked in, I think. So I ended up in an engineering school. So, yeah.
And then, so just tell us a little bit more about your study, and then you went off, and then you then left home and traveled because you.
So I did my engineering. So after that, I had a very short time with aeronautic defense. So that was because of one of the projects that I was very interested in. So I worked with very good people there. So fantastic experience. So during that time, I realized my heart was actually in business. So it was kind of a light bulb moment, where you realize, okay, I've chased my dream of becoming a world-class engineer. I wanted to study communications. I wanted to do this and so many things. And then when you finally realize your dream, it's one of those moments wherein you go, this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. So there is something else that is pulling me, that there is a pull for something else. And for me, that was business. So, I was reading Times and Forbes, just as the newspaper, in the newspaper shops and stuff. And there was a strong pull on, look at all these leaders and the visibility they have, and look at how much good they can do in the world, kind of thing. So it was just a very naive thinking at that time, but what it was is it's a calling for business. And when I look back at that moment, there is footprint on that is exactly what I wanted to do throughout my life, but I just didn't realize it. So I went to business school, loved it, loved every moment of it, and met a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of other famous CEOs as well in the process. So all this was very enriching. The whole process was very enriching. So it made, or rather it all played a part of making me who I am.
Okay, so the business school, where was that? In India as well?
So India, yeah, that was in India.
Okay,
so closer to where I was raised. Yeah. Okay,
so when you finished business school, what happened next?
Yeah. Oh, interesting story. So I worked with a logistics company. So wonderful bosses and wonderful experience. So the people I worked with, this was nearly 22 years back. So when I look at it, there were 5 of us who became very, very close, and they're still my best friends. So we chat every day, kind of thing. So it is a family-owned business, but a very old business. The business as such had existed, I think, for over 100 years or something. And me and my other colleague, we were the 2 female employees among, I think, over 10,000 plus males. So it's a different world. Running logistics is different. It's very, very different. And Ford and General Motors were setting up in India at that time. So India was very different during that time. It has just been globalized. So for us, the exposure that we had was interaction with the rest of the world. And sometimes we were manning phones, me and my other colleague. That's because our English was reasonably okay, so we can communicate with international stakeholders. So that's all it was. So be it a girl who was the voice behind the phone, to fixing computers, to anything to be done, he just did it. And the leaders of the organizations are people I admire. So there are people in every organization who make the organization what it is, and they are the ones who leave a legacy. So I was able to learn and work with most of them, which was great. So after logistics, I had an offer from an American company to work on business transformations. So what they were doing was implementing ERP solutions. So I applied. It was just weird. I don't know how I got the job, but I got the job. So I started working on business transformations after that. Yeah.
Excellent. So where did that take you? Did you then leave India?
Oh, yeah. So that took me to a few different places in India because because it was a German company with the major shareholding from the US, and they were penetrating the Indian market. So we had a good coverage on the Indian subcontinent. After that, I went to the United States. So that's where the money was, and worked on major projects there. So very, very different worlds, stark contrast to what I've been used to. So best of both worlds, right? So you learn wherever you are, you learn and you adapt. So there you go. Yeah.
And within that time, you met your husband and got married.
Yeah, I met, and then I got a job in Australia. So I moved here, and we met at work. Yeah.
So tell me, just out of curiosity, where in the US were you?
I was in Florida.
So anywhere in particular?
Florida, Jacksonville.
Oh, okay.
Jacksonville, yeah, which is closer to Georgia. It's Florida, but it's closer to Georgia. Yeah.
Yeah, because my sister's in Florida as well. She's in
nice.
in Tampa.
Tampa, yeah. Tampa is further south. Yeah.
And we've had an excellent guest previously. There is a dream decipherer, very interesting person, and she lives in Miami.
All right. Florida is a very interesting place. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been a few times. Yeah. It's very nice.
Yeah.
So anyway, so then from Florida, then what took you to Australia?
That was a very interesting experience. So the company GFC, the company I was working for, got bought by a different one. So we were all figuring out how life is going to be. And I didn't want to take a chance by hanging around, put it that way. So applied for a few jobs. And my manager at that time introduced me to someone else. And then a job in Australia came through. And Australia has always been a dream destination for a while. Like as a child, you look at pictures of kangaroos and stuff. So something attracted me, and something said it's the right thing to do. So I ended up in Australia.
So how long ago was that?
That was quite recent, actually. 2018. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And so where are you now? Brisbane?
Brisbane, yeah.
And you love it there?
So far, it's all right. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, and that's where you met the man of your life?
Yes. That's where we met. Right. Yeah. And life changed. Yes.
So you mentioned that, I mean, he's got an Irish surname. So had he moved from Ireland to Australia, or was he just...
his ancestors did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, his ancestors might have done, but he was born and raised. He was raised in Australia. So.
And you've got a daughter.
Yeah, we've got a daughter.
How old is she?
Small daughter. She's 5. Yeah.
Ah, very nice. Yeah, I have my twins, a boy and a girl. They're 7.
Oh wow!
And my eldest son is 10.
Wow, it's a full house.
Hard work, but enjoyable at times.
Oh, yeah.
Most times.
It's worth it. Yeah. They change us, right? So my perspective has changed a lot since Abby came to our lives. So everything I do or do not do, or rather everything Mark and I do or do not do is for our daughter. So we make choices based on her. And so, yeah, I think becoming a parent is the best thing that has happened to us. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it. I wouldn't want anything, even though it can be extremely hard work at times, but it can be so rewarding. And
Yeah.
You look at their faces and you can see when they're happy, when they're sad, and how you can influence the change as well. So it's magical.
Yeah. Yeah. And I felt like the children make us grow in different ways. So the growth that we have had since our daughter came to our lives has been quite, it's a blessing. That's an area of growth that we wouldn't have had if we didn't become parents. So yeah,
Try having 3.
it's a blessing. Wow. Yep. You're all zen, so there you go.
But you're planning anymore?
No.
Right. Okay. Well, we only planned 2 and we got a bonus one.
Okay. Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's a blessing. Yeah.
It was because we thought, will the next one be, because we have like our eldest is a boy, so we thought, will the next one be, we wanted a brother or a sister for him, and we thought we couldn't decide, well, would it be good to have a brother or would it be good to have a sister? And then we got both, one of each.
Oh, so, there you go. Yeah.
So perfect.
There you
so
go.
Anyway,
perfect. Yeah.
So life in Australia now. So you're still with the company that you moved originally for?
I don't know. I've changed jobs since then. So I stayed with the company for 5.5 years. So after that, I worked in multiple areas. So the company that I moved with, they specialized on payrolls. They specialized on payroll transformations. But it's basically making payrolls cheaper and easier and more affordable. That's their market. And after that, I worked for a sustainability company who focused on mining and oil and natural gas, because that's where the money is. And sustainability at that time was more a compliance stick. So people were implementing, just the basic compliance that they need to, like emissions and all that. And this company had a vision to take sustainability forward, and they do a great job with that. And since after that, it's quite interesting. After the sustainability company, I've been doing business transformations or leading it in different shapes and forms. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I've done a little bit of research on you, and I've seen, I mean, we're connected on LinkedIn, and I've seen some of the posts that you put out, which I'm going to come onto in a moment. But also, we are in a book group. So I want you to share more about that, because as I mentioned, previous guests have the option, if they want to join me on a journey of being in our first edition book, and then to share their stories in the book. So 11 of us are doing that at the moment. Yep. And
that's
we will have it for a second book and so on, but we have to get the first one done first. So it'd be like stories like yours that you'd share. But we met in the same book group, so with the same publisher. So I'm curious now, tell us more about what you're writing, why you're writing it, and how did that come about?
That's a very good question, and thank you for leading me into it. So we both work with Paul, so he is awesome, by the way. So one of the things I always wanted to do was to write, because I just enjoy writing. So among all the things, I'm an introvert, so all the thoughts naturally come to me when I write. So be it writing essays to whatever it is, it was a thing. And one day my husband told me, you have a lot of knowledge that's given to you, so where is it documented? I go, well, there is none. So, and then I ended up thinking about, what do I do for my daughter, type of thing. And then I started writing on pirates. That's where it all started. So I love them. I love pirates, that economy and the very thing of democracy and the free trade that they introduced. And NASA, if it had gone on that right path, it would have been the first free democratic world and all that things. So I started reading about pirates, writing about them and all that. And as I wrote about, I'm now realizing there is a lot of things that are very common in the trading culture. for example, they collaborated over competing. So big businesses these days are trying to collaborate. They realized competing doesn't get them anywhere. Locking heads with others doesn't get them anywhere. So it's better to collaborate. But when we look at it, this is what the trading tradition that I grew up with, or the families that I saw in the trading world did. They actively chose to collaborate. So, for example, when someone's in a fruit market, or example, if someone's selling fruits, the other person, when they get into a trade, will look for a complementary trade that can actually support the business. Very similar to what pirates did. So now I'm learning that some of the principles which the ancient trading families did are so important. And maybe that's the thing that has evolved into different applications. So that got me fascinated. So right now I'm just writing about principles that I know, principles that I remember. And of course, yes, about the pirates and all the good stuff that they did. So I don't know where this journey is going to take me and how the book is going to evolve. But I've just not now done the blind writing content with Paul. So we are in the process of formulating it, editing it, and all that. But I'm just going with the flow on wherever that leads. So, and there is also someone asked me a question on, or rather, I was in an interview, I think, a few days back. And one of the leaders in the ERP space asked me about what makes the transformations that I'm responsible for different. So, and his observation to that was it's the principles that you bring in, and the principle and the kind of the lessons or the knowledge that you impart to everyone. So that's an angle that I haven't thought about, which is like, okay, who I am and being who I am matters. So why don't I just embrace who I am and take it to the next level? So, yeah. So working on it's just big work in progress in terms of the book, but it's coming. It has come a long way, and it'll have something here.
So when did you start with Paul?
With Paul, it was last year.
All right.
I think.
Okay.
It's last year, maybe October. It was before Christmas. Yeah.
All right. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
So maybe just a little plug for Paul. So it's Paul Smith Publishing out of London, right? And I mean, I came across him because I wanted to create a book for previous guests. So I looked around for many different publishing and editors, publishing houses, and so on. And I had offers from lots of different people, but I found that he was the most genuine, and he had the most time to spend with people, that he wouldn't keep charging you for stuff, because people say you got so many iterations and that's it, that's part of the package. And I thought, well, working with 11 people, we're going to have a ton more of stuff.
Multiple iterations.
So we wanted someone that would actually spend the time with us, and it wouldn't like itemize everything and then keep charging you for that. Otherwise it wouldn't work.
It wouldn't work. So what I really liked about Paul is his openness. So when the first thing he asked me was, he was a person who was recommended by a contact, but the first thing he asked me was, why do you want to do it? And what do you want it to be? Because his way of dealing with it was, if you can tell me why you're doing it, I'll help you shape it. So if you just want to write a book, just write some content and pay an editor and then you're done. But if you're trying to do something else and leave a legacy, let's invest some time and effort on it. And I learned amazing things from him. And I tell Paul every time I meet him at every session, I feel like I'm growing. I'm learning something new, because he is a wealth of knowledge, and his life was amazing. Like the places that he has been and things that he has done. And he's such a genuine person. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I like what you said. You mentioned legacy. Now, if I look at, if there's a legacy I want to leave behind for my children, it's not that I work for some big corporation and was whipped every month or quarter to bring in the numbers, to keep the shareholders happy. I mean, they would laugh at me. They think, why are you doing that? Isn't there something that you could do that's more purposeful, more meaningful in your life, and something that you can pass down as a legacy? So that it got me thinking that, I mean, the book is one of them, but that's why also I started this show. So
there you go.
I mean, it's been 3.5 years now, and 132 guests later from all around the world.
Wow.
And
there you go.
To leave that behind and have people share their stories, like, helps me, because it helps me become a better person, because hearing everybody's stories, they're magical. Like, I mean, I don't know you, or never knew you before, and I'm always fascinated about people. So tell me who you are, and then on a journey like this. So you mentioned legacy, and particularly for your daughter. So the legacy that you want is not just because you also mentioned about ancient wisdom, right?
Yes.
And I've seen a lot of your posts about ancient wisdom. So, I mean, could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So this is a thing that happened, I think, a year or two ago. So where I started, like, during the meetings I lead, there was always a moment. So people in Australia acknowledge the native owners of the land, which is a good thing to do. And then they normally hand the meeting over to me. So I was thinking about, what can I do to make this more meaningful and make this more powerful? So I started sharing snippets, like 1 or 2 minute snippets on the principles that I have observed growing up, or what has been taught to me. And I kept writing them because I use them in meetings and stuff. So when I look at it, it's very good content. And I follow, in the modern world, I follow 𝗙𝗪𝗪𝗪, who is into speak life and everything. And I'm a firm believer in positive intelligence, speaking life. So it's just a matter of using the content or the information that's available with me, and using it in a business context, and also speaking life into the situations. Because most of the stuff, in my experience, when me or my colleagues are called to solve, is people are normally earning for that either knowledge or earning for somebody to come and help them and solve it. So it's about keeping everyone calm and keeping everyone focused. And some of the principles that I have learned have played a major part in it. So when I started writing it, it was powerful. So that's where all this snippets, work-related snippets, are coming from. So it's just strong principles that I've learned. For example, responding with grace, even if others don't. So we choose to respond. Like, it's never good to react. We choose to respond, and going the one step further to choosing to respond with grace with any situation. So it's a conscious choice for me or for anyone else reading it, but it's worth doing it. So that's what I have realized. And the value that I have seen with that principles is that, for example, when we talk about transformations or business changes or anything, it does have an impact financially. I don't know how, and there are experts here who would be able to quantify it a lot better. But things like even happier teams, calmer teams perform better. And how do you put a value on it? So things that amaze me is, like, when I look at my childhood, and even any person who I meet growing up, they never complained about their job. They loved doing their job, be it working in their field or working in a factory or in a shop or anything. They knew they were part of a big picture, and they all loved about it. In the Western world, when you go, all right, everyone waits for that 6 p.m. or 5 p.m. on a Friday, and they go Monday morning meetings, everybody dread it. It's like, we don't have to do that. Like, why don't we create a better world for us and ourselves? And if we are solving these big problems of whatever it is that we are solving, why don't we be nice to each other along the way and keep and create lifelong relationships. So that's I started calling it ancient wisdom when in ancient wisdom moments in the team meetings, but then it became a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen. So I've read some of them. I mean, when you say snippets, they're actually quite long.
Okay.
Right.
I'll make it shorter next time. Yeah.
But I mean, these snippets, you're writing them all.
Yeah.
Oh, they're excellent. I mean, I thought you were quoting someone else because I was reading it and I think, wow, these are excellent. Are these snippets
they're my content. Yeah.
From a document or something that you've taken a snippet out?
No, it's just my diary notes. Yeah.
Oh, well, I definitely encourage the audience to take a look at those because they are excellent.
Oh, thank you.
Right,
yes,
so,
I'm honored. Thank you.
But I mean, you're welcome. I mean, you talked about your grandfather also with knowledge, a lot of knowledge that is handed down. So a lot of this knowledge is also, I mean, you say that it was never documented, but it was kind of passed on through the family, through traditions and whatever. So, but you're absolutely right. I find that in the Western world, and I've worked for many corporate companies and in sales roles and
target-based roles.
Felt that the whole thing was completely disjointed. I mean, you have silos within the company. You have like sales, then you have marketing, then you have product management, then you have whatever. And you're only answerable to the big boss in sales, right? You don't really spend any time with the other groups because that's not your responsibility. Yours is out there to close the deals. But then I need the others to help me because I need marketing to provide me the information, the value proposition, everything else. But no, you're out there selling, start knocking on the doors and selling. I think, well, I need the tools and everything to help me do that. And I always thought that there's a massive breakdown in internal communication, that it didn't work. And it didn't matter kind of what fancy process that you threw at it. It was the same. It just didn't work. I mean, they start saying, oh, well, it's agile, it's scrum, it's this, it's that. And they're just fancy names to confuse you even more, right? I just think... I mean,
you're so cool with the way you say it. It's just people put on names to simple things and make it more complicated, right? In life, it's very simple. Like you solve a problem.
No,
and the quickest way is to solve a problem. Yeah.
But it's just common. I mean, going back to what you said, I mean, you mentioned about common people and the elite. I think common people have common sense, right?
Yes.
Right. The elite don't have common sense, right? So, hello.
That's true because you're very siloed. We become very siloed, and yeah.
So, I mean, when you say common, it sounds like kind of the underdog, the commoner. But I look at it in a different way. It's the people with common sense, right?
Yeah, knowledge.
Right? Because we have that wisdom that maybe is not always documented, but I think we tend to think outside the box. And
we do.
We look at things in a critical way, and we question, and we want to know. We want to help. It's about helping one another, right?
Yeah.
Particularly when it comes to, I mean, your job now. I mean, you're taking like ancient wisdom, like wisdom that worked. I mean, as you said, in the workplace, it was more harmonious in the way that you work together, you help one another, and you'd go to work enjoying it. It didn't matter what role you did. It was fun, right? Because everybody supported one another. But the Western world never helped you in that. I wouldn't say not all, because obviously there are companies that are very good.
Changing,
but in general, I mean, if you had to generalize, particularly for all the companies I worked for, we just had bad bosses and bad processes. And silos, and no, you came to work exactly like you said on the Monday, dreading it.
Yeah,
and
you, we don't have to. Right? Yeah,
no, and you definitely wouldn't be the person that would ask a question in a meeting. And they said that at the end of a meeting with a bad boss breathing down your neck, saying, any questions? You think, oh, I'll keep quiet here, hoping someone else is going to speak up. And that's really not the way it should be.
No.
Because,
but,
I mean, I know we could digress and talk about bosses and leaders, but a leader is someone that would embrace the team and say, like, how can we do it together? We're going to fail for sure, but we're going to have success. And we look at the failure as a learning, and we're not going to finger point. We're going to look at that, well, that didn't work, right? Collectively, we need to see why it didn't work and what could we do better. Yeah. But a bad boss like finger points, and he wants a scapegoat because he doesn't want to like have to blame himself. Right? But anyway.
And it takes only one or few people to change this, right? So this is what I have experienced in my style of work. All it takes is one person to introduce that positivity. And now I'm reading Positive Intelligence, and it makes a huge lot of sense, because our brains have the mirror neurons, which actually mimics the other person. So if we as leaders put some positivity in the world, like it's saying it's okay to make mistakes. Like as long as we we fail fast, we fail forward, it's great. Bring it on. So, because it's all valuable information. So, and you support the person who has been through that process. So be it in personal relationships or in business relationships, yeah, it's great. Someone had a failure, but a word of encouragement during a failure is much more important than a laurel during a success. Nobody wants a congratulations, but everyone said, hey, that was great in that thing. Though it didn't work, you learned this, this, and this, which you can utilize for later. So that information is very, very valuable. Yeah.
I completely agree. I mean, we need to embrace failure. And it's not failure, it's a learning. I mean, the way we look at failure in a negative, it should be a positive. I mean, failure, I failed. I mean, I'm so confident about driving. I learned to drive at school. And when I came to my test, I was kind of like, yeah, cool dude. Like, I'm going to sail this because it's easy. I can drive already. But I made a stupid mistake, right? And I never forgot that. I failed. I felt so bad afterwards when I gone home to the party I was supposed to be having to celebrate. And I said I'd failed. They said, you didn't fail. You're just joking. I thought, well, no, I failed. And yeah, I've lived with that. But at the time, I was very, very disappointed. But I look back and I think, well, that was the best thing that ever happened, because it taught me that failure is a learning. And I went back and then passed, and I went on to advanced driving, and I did truck driving, and I did motorbikes, and I did everything. But if it wasn't for that, I don't think I would have carried on doing the others. I needed that to remove the ego, because the ego's dripping out all over the place, making a mess on the floor, and I'm this like egotistical person that my bubble was burst, and it was a good lesson. So, but
there you go. Yeah.
So I think in the workplace, what you said, I mean, what are the challenges that you face then when you come to do kind of this organizational change and transformation and everything?
That's a very valuable and a very interesting question, right? So when I looked at it, my job initially, yes, it was purely a technical job, and change wasn't in my radar. And having that engineering background and the MBA and everything, you're trying to look at the numbers because everyone thinks that's what the world wants. So you try and finish an implementation as soon as possible, get your revenue as soon as possible, and you get out. Great. And you do that for 15, 20 times. And then you go, what is the footprint that I'm leaving? When you sit back and realize, what is the footprint? Who am I changing? Who am I impacting? Where am I leaving a legacy? And in my case, when I sat back and answered those questions to myself, because a work without purpose is not necessarily good. And this is something that is coming from my side of thinking, or the way I was raised. Like, don't do anything if it is not purposeful for you. So if I'm going to continue this path, I need to make this very purposeful for me. So what made it purposeful for me was looking back and saying, what are the things that actually made me feel better about whatever I have done? So when I looked at it, it was an implementation in the middle of nowhere for a sugar factory, and that really helped transform that village. So did we do it on time, on budget, on meeting all the KPIs, and did we make profits? Yes, absolutely. Maybe we would have smashed it out of the park. And if you look at that metrics, people might even say it's too good to be true. But that's a great thing, fine. But putting that aside, we made the life for that sugar factory so good, and they're clients for me. They're a client for my life. So I visited them after 15 years, and they still welcomed me with open arms. I took my family there and everything. So it's the relationship that it's been building, and also the synergy that it's happening. So that transformation story is inspiring other transformations in the local area. So more businesses are staying afloat. It's impacting more change in the world. So to answer your question, that's what drove me. So when I am doing it now here in Australia and in the rest of the world, I try and do the same thing. So try and implement the same principles. So be it in, let's say at the moment, I do a lot of work for critical infrastructure. In here, what are we doing? We are making the world secure. We are making the world safe. We are making the world a better place, like by doing all these things. So helping everyone realize this. So it's just not a job where you just tick the box, but what you're doing here matters. So if you're doing this part of the work, yes, it's contributing to a bigger picture, and that bigger picture is contributing to something else. So this is effectively something that I try and tell myself, and I try and tell others that I work with. And that same empathy, or whatever you want to call it, you take that same feeling to the client and you get the best outcome for everyone. So that is who I am. And I think that's what makes me me. And that's always going to be a part of me. And I love what I do. So there you go. Yeah.
That sounds perfect. So, I mean, you're taking a company that have a problem. So you're addressing the problem, finding a solution, and giving them the results that they want. So kind of the 3 steps to business success. So, but in a way that is purposeful and meaningful. I mean, you mentioned earlier about sustainability. So, yeah. I mean, would there be certain companies that you wouldn't want to work for because you didn't believe in the purpose of the company, or would you just see it as business?
I am a person of heart. So if it doesn't work for my heart, I won't be able to give my 100%. So they're better off with someone else. So yeah. if that makes sense. Yeah. I want to do justice to the job. Yeah.
No, exactly. If you have a passion for it and you can see why they're doing it. And I mean, typically in companies, there's been a vision. Someone started a company because they had a vision, a projected view of the future. What did I want to achieve? And then you have a mission, which is how am I going to achieve that vision? But nobody thought of purpose. Well, what's the purpose? Right?
Yeah. And why gets missed, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because you said, right, I help companies with the purpose, but you've got to be careful. Also, the purpose is to make a load of money. Right? And I think, well, to me, that's not the right purpose. Right? Yeah. I mean,
money is a byproduct, right?
Why are you in business? Well, to make a lot of money. And I think, well, hang on a minute. That's not the purpose. That's an outcome. Yeah. Right? Yeah. The purpose should be the desire that why you're doing it. I'm doing it because I'm helping people achieve X or Y or whatever. Yeah. But then, exactly. As you said, it goes back to your why. Why did you do it? Yeah. Why did you create these plastic bottles with these fizzy drinks in? Why? Well, we can make a lot of money, but the purpose and
okay. Exactly. So, as you said, James, the purpose comes in different shapes and forms.
Mm-hmm.
Money is an outcome, or I believe money is an outcome. And if there is no money, none of us would be doing it, put it that way. So it becomes a hobby, or it becomes something else. So yes, there is money involved, and you can make good money out of it. Absolutely. And you can also make the process fun and also more meaningful. It's like a carpenter. My grandfather used to tell me the story. There was a family carpenter who actually, delivered furniture for the family. Every time he does it, he comes in, he designs the furniture, and my grandfather said he always leaves a piece of his heart whenever he drops the furniture. So it's just not customer service or anything. It's more than that. And he became a member of the family in the sense people actually asked his advice before they decided what type of furniture they need to furnish their house with. So I remember growing up, looking at this person with complete, respect, because strangers who have become his clients and then come and ask him for advice on things that they want to put in their house. And that's very true for us. Like when we look at ourselves in business, people come to us for advice because they trust us with their intimate secrets and their problems and whatever else. And we are custodians of the truth or of that information. And in addition to the obligation that we have towards each other and towards our clients and everything, there is a bigger purpose. We are solving a problem in whatever shape and size and form. But in the process of solving the problem, we are also making the world a better place, or safer, or cheaper, or whatever it is. In your case, you're impacting clients who with real sustainability goals, not just ticking the box. Like, yeah, you've recycled a few things, great. So what does it actually do? How about you stop the, people cutting down trees or taking away land or whatever, that's the right thing to do, right? You can put a meaning into this compliance thing, or just being very meaningful, put some meaning into what it is. So if you are into the business of keeping people secure, understand the why. And money naturally comes, as we know. So otherwise we wouldn't be doing what we are doing. But there is always more to money and more to our why. So that's my purpose. Yeah.
No, it's funny you said that and mention why a lot. I mean, I read the book from Simon Sinek about your why, right?
Yeah.
But then after reading it, I started to challenge, right? If I don't know who I am, then my why I don't know my why. So what is my purpose? Is how you got to find your why. Why do you do it? And I thought, well, I need to find my who first. So it's kind of come back to the discussion right at the very beginning, prior to the recording. Talked about, if I don't know who I am and I'm lost within myself, then I don't have a why, because I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yes. So
I think he said it starts with your why. Well, I disagree. I think it starts with your who, because if you don't know who you are, then your why doesn't matter.
That's very true. Yeah. So find out who you actually are and who you want to be. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know we digress a little bit here, but I mean, I grew up with a song by the band called The Who, right? And one of their songs in the 60s, I think, I can't remember when it was, right? It was, "Who Are You?" And I remember the lyrics. I mean, who are you? Who? And I thought, well, I don't know. And I went through that kind of transition in my life that I hit rock bottom, and then I was questioning everything. And I went to see this person that became a coach, and then she said, "The biggest problem is you don't know who you are." I said, "Well, of course I do." And she said, "Well, who are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm James, of course." And she said, "I never asked what your name was." I said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm the father of 3 children." And she said, "I didn't ask your family situation. I'm asking about you. Who are you?" I thought, I don't know. No idea. I don't know who I am. And she said, 99% of the population don't know either. They exist if they're lucky, but they don't live a meaningful, purpose-driven life because they don't know who they are.
Yeah, that's very, very, very profound. Yeah.
And then when she said, do you want me to help you? And I said, oh, please do. She said, well, you're going to tell me the answers because I don't know you. You have them locked away inside. And I thought, well, I guess if anyone knows me, it's got to be myself. I've lived with myself all my life. I must have the answers there somewhere. I just needed her to guide me and unlock the door. So then once I knew my who, then I knew why I'd be doing it. But anyway, I know we digressed a bit, but I think that's important also.
That's good.
With business, because in business, whether it's your own business or you're working for a company, then you want to be following the vision. I work for that company, not because it's a nice big fat pay salary and I'm okay and I can have my materialistic things and whatever, although many people will do that. And maybe there's nothing wrong with that. But to me, I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to know, well, what's the purpose? If it's not like you said about serving one another and helping one another, if we're not doing that on a daily basis, well, what are we doing?
Exactly, right? Yeah.
I just wanted to touch on, because I know we could take that subject and talk about it all day long, which wouldn't be a bad thing on a panel discussion with some others, right? Which we did. We did a panel discussion on dreams and what dreams mean, and we had 4 experts, and that was excellent. Loved it. Right? So we could do the same on many other things.
On business, we should do that.
Also on ancient wisdom. I just want to come back to that again, because like ancient wisdom is a knowledge, is a knowing and a learning, and it's been passed down. It's been proven. And if you look at your granddad as the example, I mean, he shared stories, which we didn't talk about stories, which are stories are meaningful, and stories could be used for everything. Life is a story, right? So the stories that you shared about him being a carpenter, now people came to him, so he was seen in as a
my grandfather wasn't a carpenter. No, this was someone else.
But for the stories, I mean, the legacy that he's leaving behind are stories. Right? Stories of wisdom, of knowledge, and everything else. So you recall your granddad, he was the front of all knowledge, people came to him and whatever. But in the workplace, I mean, we all work in the workplace. Everybody that works there has knowledge of something that could be beneficial to the company. Where is the knowledge database of the people? Have you ever seen one?
It's like, put it this way, there is lots of stuff talked about a skills database and this and that and all that things that we do, right? So, but when I observe businesses from that I grew up with, most people knew who to go to or who to ask for information in the small business or in the world that I grew up. So, and that gave individuals purpose because they were doing their jobs, plus being a part of the picture and the big picture and everything. And the purpose also enabled them to groom someone else who can actually take their place. So it was solving a lot of problems. So stopping this knowledge hoarding and keeping everything together type of thing. Plus, it was more sustainable for the workforce. People actually left legacies, like they transferred the knowledge they had to someone else without being asked for or forced into, and things like that. So all these new things that is coming in, like which is in the last 20 years, like skills database and succession planning and this and that. Ancient businesses have done this without even thinking for a long period of time. And the strategies there have been very evolved. Because when I was talking to business experts on the workforce planning, because Australia or few countries for that matter are currently going through a problem of a lot of people retiring at a point in time in the next 15 years. So where is the knowledge going to come from? And there is no second line leadership and all those unique problems. But the answer for that could lie in some of the ancient practices that they were. So everyone was, the balance was, they were always taking new people in. The reason was they were training 2ICs for every role subconsciously all the time. So this is a powerful technique, a simple but a very powerful technique. But I remember my first job, and my manager trusted me with information. I was just a trainee, but this level of trust was amazing. So gave me some confidential information, which I valued with my heart. And I also took responsibility for owning it and bringing it. And that's the same in rest of the world, right? So it's like if you choose to train that, select people, train them, and look beyond the paper qualifications. So not everyone goes to Stanford, and not everyone goes to Harvard, or not everyone is a college person. But people gain knowledge through different shapes, different forms, and every knowledge is useful. And the diversity of thought, the main thing that we all are looking for in different shapes and forms, as it's a natural risk mitigation. So people who think differently bring different perspectives. And I believe that's a natural form of risk mitigation. And someone else covers the blind spot. So I can give you so many examples of where, my colleagues have covered me in many places, and even in life, like my husband and I cover each other in different aspects. And that's very common. You extend that to a workplace or extend that to a society or something else. We are naturally capable, we humans, and that's how we have lived as tribes, as groups, and then organized workforce or whatever it is. So if we go back to our roots, to some of the problems that we have in our business, we might have answers there. And I believe the wisdom is in us and around us for all these things that are going on. Though it's a very tough thing to do sometimes, to take a pause. In a heat of a moment, it's always easier to throw more things or whatever it is. So it's better to sometimes take a pause and go, okay, is this the right thing to do? And it's also, is there different ways of approaching it? Not every mountain needs to be climbed. Not every river has to be crossed by a boat. Sometimes you can build a bridge, but sometimes sometimes you wait for the summer and the river just dries and you walk across. So pick your battles.
Yeah.
And choose the right strategies. So,
exactly.
yeah.
No, I love what you're saying. And it just gets me thinking about kind of my previous life in companies, many different companies, Western companies, without naming any, that I worked for. And I just remember the day that, looking at the CVs as well, when people apply for jobs, right? Typically, it's based on certificates and everything else. It's very much academia driven, right? So if you don't have the diplomas, the degrees, the masters and PhDs and whatever, you'll get nothing. And I found, right, I found a lot of people that have these aren't the critical thinkers, right?
No.
They're people that have been indoctrinated in a way of thinking and not really thinking for themselves, but following certain textbooks. And the ones that didn't go through all of that are the ones that are the learners. They're eager to learn from many different sources. And so, but society seems to want people that have certificates after their name. And yeah. I completely disagree. I find most of the people I relate to better are the ones that are the common people. I mean, yeah. Because they have the common sense, right? But anyway, so just going back to the workplace then, when you join a new company, right, what's the first thing that you do when you join? Is you want to know who's who in the company, because you want to know who can help me in my job. So who's the person I need to speak to for IT stuff? How do I get hold of them? Where do they hang out? What's the best way to communicate with them? Is it on the phone? Is it WhatsApp? Is it email? I don't know. And then for all the different teams and departments, it's a massive, massive learning curve. And that's before you even start about doing the job on the external customers. right? It's the internal battle. And we really do not make it easy for ourselves. And like, as you said, that person has the knowledge. Well, if I didn't know that person, and I didn't know the person that's going to tell me that person's got the knowledge, then
exactly. Where do I go?
But I could spend a lot of wasted time, like scratching my head, like being completely useless to a company when I first start, because I haven't got the tools, I haven't got the equipment, I don't know who's who, I don't know when they're going to be available. And so I think a lot of the time,
things, right?
Yeah, that transformation is not just about doing it for external customers. And I also, as you said, that when you do a good job, you get repeatable business. If you do a bad job, there's a difference between a one-time client and a lifetime client. And obviously it's the lifetime clients that we want. So we do something good, but we actually listen, which
exactly
we don't actually listen, because I've said to my kids, I'm going to test you, right? So we're sitting around the table and I'm talking to them. I'm saying, are you listening? And they're busy, distracted, doing other things. So I said, are you listening? And they're not really listening, right? So I said, you're not listening, are you? And then they didn't even hear me say that, right? So I said, right, I'm going to ask you a question. There's a difference between listening and active listening, right? Do you want to know what active listening is? And they say, yes. And I said, it's actually when you're listening and you're taking note. Listening is just like, you're not really listening at all, right? So once I explained that, then I say that, kids, are you listening? And then I say, look, I want you to be active listening now, so they know the difference, right? And then because I'm going to ask you afterwards what I said. And then because they know the difference, it's made them think now about listening, which it's something very simple, but it actually works.
Yeah, and listening to understand, not just listen to respond.
Well, they don't even respond.
Right.
I mean, they're not really listening. They're just thinking they're listening.
Thinking they're listening.
So,
typical,
I mean,
right? Yeah.
Going back to the workplace, I know we need to wrap this up in a minute. Right. So just tell us kind of where you are now on your own personal journey. And I mean, and also about the book. When do you want to have the book out? Have you got a title for the book? And so kind of wrapping this up a bit so we can find out, like, how can we contact you and everything else?
Oh, perfect. So about the book, there's no titles yet. So the content is coming along, and Paul and I believe that the title will come to us at the right time. So right now, just focusing on the content. So so it is evolving, and any inputs would be fantastic. It will keep that evolving and keep it going. So in terms of timelines for the book, later this year, before Christmas, if we can get that done.
So
otherwise, it'll be next summer. Yeah.
Sorry, how many words are you writing?
I have no idea.
But how many have you done so far?
3 chapters.
3 chapters. Roughly how many words?
I'm terrible at this, James. So I'm not a numbers person. So
all right, we're doing between, I mean, for 11 of us, 5 to 6,000 words each.
Okay, that's all right. Yeah.
So I mean, I guess if it's your own book, you're going to do quite a few thousand words.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah. So I'll send you those details, but I just don't remember it on top of my head. I'm terrible at that. Yeah.
But would you have something in draft already that I can read?
Yeah, I should. Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is only between us because we're in the book group, so maybe not not to the wider audience, because they have to wait for the finished thing. But for this, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Sorry,
carry on. So and with work, I love business transformations. I'd love to continue that. So I'll keep doing that. So that'll be a good one. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you're enjoying kind of the company that you work for, everything is going all okay?
Yep. So far, it's I love it. Like in my thinking, if something doesn't work, you make it work. So I tend to do that. Yeah. So that's great. Seems to work for me. Yeah.
Okay. So on your personal journey, you want to get this book finished. You want to leave a legacy. You want to carry on with your snippets, right?
Yep. Carry on with my snippets and carry on to make things better. I hope. Yeah.
But those snippets, will you put them all together in another book, or put together in a blog or something? Because, I mean, you'd have to go back on wherever you post them and then read them individually. But if you had them in a blog, then
so that's a good idea, right? So I should start doing something like that.
Maybe also the snippets, if they're ancient wisdom on one thing and ancient wisdom on something else and whatever, then you could categorize them into areas that people could follow. Because I must admit they're excellent, and I encourage people to read them.
Wow, thank you so much. That's really kind of you. Yeah, thank you.
But I was just thinking, then maybe you could do it in a video.
In a video,
you have the words, but you actually explain it before. So
explain it. Okay.
So then people can actually see you and get familiar with you.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good idea. So I'll try that one too. Yeah.
I'm full of good ideas.
Yeah, you're amazing, right? So you've got great ideas. So that's good. Yeah.
Terrible implementing them, but great ideas.
Ideas are good. So that's good. Yeah.
Which actually, just quickly, there are persona types of people. I mean, some people are great at ideas, great at thinking of things, and there's never a shortage of ideas. It doesn't mean they're all good, but that is kind of how their mind and brain works. And then there's other people that are terrible with ideas, but great at implementing whatever you give them, right? And there's the different persona types, right? I mean, I studied that, and I mean, I know that I'm good at ideas and good at strategizing, but don't give me something to implement, right? That'll take me forever because it's not my core thing. So it's like going back to the job. Don't give me a job that I really can't do because I look like the fool. Give me something that I can do because I can excel at that. So we all have our gifts and our traits and the things that we are naturally good at. So use those. That's why I was going back to the kind of the knowledge database of people, because you say this person is very good at that, right? This person is very good at the other, but it doesn't mean that they're good at the same things, right? Because it's just not them.
Just not them. So I feel like when people do what they're good at, like as you say, some people are great at ideas. So, where else do you get ideas from? So those ideas are great. So good. And some people are good at implementing them. So pick an idea and implement. Someone like me just goes after one thing and I just love doing it. Like sometimes I over-engineer it, but that's fine. But I love doing it. So I'm not someone who gives up. So there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. You found your niche and it's great because
thank you.
Because as you said, you wake up and you enjoy the work that you do, you enjoy the people that you do it with, and you see around sustainability that is a purpose in what you're doing. And what you mentioned about the sugar company is a perfect example. So, but these stories are also stories that you could share with other clients, because sharing that story is much more powerful than you telling me about some logistics and whatever. I'd fall asleep.
Oh, yeah.
But telling me
exactly.
Story,
so,
right? Like your grandfather told the story about the carpenter. These stories are endless, and it's the stories that sell, not necessarily the product.
Oh yeah, and it's the stories with the power, right? They are the legacy. So there you go. Yeah.
So anyway, on that note, you've been an absolutely fantastic guest.
Right? Thank you.
Yeah, I love your story. Thank you for having me. Yeah, absolute pleasure. And I've learned so much more about you. I'm going to continue to read your snippets and make comments. Right, encourage other people. Awesome. And then for people to reach out to you, what is the best way to connect with you?
They can follow me on LinkedIn because that's the only social media I use. And and email me.
So when they follow you on LinkedIn, I'll put the links in the notes anyway.
Cool. Yeah.
Because they'll search on one name and you'll be on another name.
Yeah. So I'll just send you the link. That's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So then we can find it. Okay. Yeah. So any last closing words that you want to say?
No, you've been amazing. So thank you for hosting this. And I looked at the other guests and how much impact that you have created, especially in your side of the world. So it's really great. And I look up to you. And thank you for doing this. And thank you for continuing to make a huge impact.
I look up to you. We all look up to each other. I mean, we're all unique in our own special way. And you are an absolutely magical guest. And I love your story.
Thank you.
I love what you're doing. And it ticks all the right boxes for me. So keep doing what you're doing. And I can't wait to read your book.
Pleasure. And thank you. We'll look forward to collaborating. Thank you.
Okay. So have a great weekend.
All right. Have a good weekend.
Okay.
See you.
Thank you. Bye.
See you sometime. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Wow, that was another featured business brought to you by Visibility Impact. If you'd like to be our next featured guest or learn how James Mofat can help you leverage on the art and power of interactive storytelling for your business, reach out and schedule a call now.